And disclaimer, if you bought this car, if you are the person that ended up with the salvaged car after this is said and done, I'm so sorry that we did such a half-assed job putting it together. Like, we were trying our best with what knowledge we knew at the time. This was years ago. We had no idea what we were doing.
That's all we had.
Yeah, we did our best. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. So we're trying something a little bit differently here. Me and Brandon have done a couple different cool things with cars before we started doing YouTube videos. We started the YouTube channel. We thought it was a cool way to, catalog, document the things that we're doing. We really started it just to do it for ourselves, just to remember all the cool things we're doing. And that's why there's like a little bit of like skateboarding or like photography stuff I do mixed in. We try to keep it like strictly cars, but it's really just a place to, document the things that I'm getting into, and when Brandon's with me, the things that, he's doing along with me. That's one thing I want to talk about. So Brandon is my best friend, and we've known each other a really long time, but there's one thing that brought us together, and yes, that was cars, but there was one car specifically that brought me and Brandon together. Years ago, I built an Exomotive Exoset. I was one of the first people in the US to build one of those. Now they're pretty common. I built this Exoset and I traded it for an NC Miata, and all of this was after I had my first Lotus, and I loved that Miata. But I just couldn't. I'm not trying to rag on the Miata, but it's definitely a downgrade from the Lotus, even though it was wide body and had full bolt-ons, and it was so much fun just because Miatas are so much fun. I just couldn't bring myself to put a whole bunch of money into it. It was just a trade. I drove it for a summer and sold it. And originally I wanted to import something. I wanted a twin turbo 300ZX. I always really liked those. And so I started looking at Japanese classics. It seemed like they were kind of the premier JDM import company. They were a little pricier, but everything looked really clean. The guys were super friendly. And so I started talking to them about this 300ZX. And ended up selling. They didn't have anything else in stock. At the time, the only legal Skyline was the R32, which is awesome, but it's not a 34, so I'm not really that big of a fan of it. Like, I'm like Fast and the Furious Paul Walker fanboy the whole way. Like, the reason that I got into cars was watching the first Fast and the Furious movie. Couldn't even drive a car yet, but, that's what got me into cars. And so, just like a lot of people, that's a very similar story for so many people. The 3.4 just holds a place in my heart. But all they had was, R32s. That's all that was legal. I was still kind of set on getting kind of an older Japanese car. Started Googling around, and I found that there was a handful of companies that made R34 body conversions for the R32. So we already kind of had a partnership with a shop that I was working with. I'd been working with a few different shops doing all of their marketing and just photography and video and crap like that. And so I figured, hey, if I got this, I could probably put it on the car. It's just a body kit, right? It should have tabs and bolts, and it should bolt on because that's how body kits work, right?
Here's the nightmare. What, 6-7 months nightmare.
We're getting there. We have to get the car first. I sell the Miata, and I buy a black R32 GTST. I couldn't really justify buying a GTR. In hindsight, I probably should have, but I really wasn't looking for a really high performance car. I just wanted to build an R34, basically. It sounded like a lot of fun. So I bought the car from Japanese Classics. I can personally vouch for them being a really good company. The process was really easy. The car was in fantastic condition. After the build was done, I drove the car for a while. I mean, it was months with no problems at all. It was in really good shape, so I can definitely vouch for Japanese Classics. The car got there a few weeks later after the process, and literally the same day, we drove it to a shop that I was working with at the time, and I ordered a full R34 body conversion kit. So it had a front and rear bumper, side skirts, front and rear fenders, so it's a full wide body conversion. It was supposed to be the nice FRP Duraflex type material. When it finally arrives, it is a pile of crap, half-ass molded fiberglass. It was in horrible shape. A few of the side skirts were tweaked, was just in really bad shape, but the car was already here. the body kit's already here. We bought new headlights. We had lots of stuff. So I'm still thinking in my head, that should be pretty easy. We should just be able to slap this body on, paint it, and go. I bet I can do it in 2 or 3 weeks. And how many times has one of your 2 or 3 week projects turned into 5 or 6 months? For us, definitely more than once. And so I get in and I rip the whole body off of the Skyline every night after work. I'm working till, 11 or 12 every single night. Get the bumpers off, start pulling side skirts and panels and things like that off of the car, getting it ready, put this new body kit on. I get to a point to where it's time to kind of tape the body on, and the rear fenders, they go on pretty good. The rear bumper went on really good. One side skirt, instead of being totally square, it was so warped. I could tell that was going to be a nightmare. The front bumper, however, was the worst mold I've ever seen come out of a fiberglass mold ever. Or where the bumper should meet the fenders was off like 8 inches on either side. It was like, this is a wide body, but the front bumper was a wide body.
Do she got a booty? She do! She do!
She do! Yes, it was so wrong. It had a hood too, so the hood fit fine. All of it was going to need extensive body work, which I was expecting.
It fit fine like the Atlantic Ocean.
Oh, jeez. It was so bad. I'm starting to piece this together with my real rudimentary knowledge. The only knowledge I have of body work is when my first Lotus Elise was wrecked by an unnamed large franchise car tire company.
Offering huge discounts.
Feel free to bring the tires back. No, I can't rag on them. They really treated me right. I will tell that story at some point because it is worth telling a 20-year-old kid trying to do his first body work on an Elise. That was a lot of fun. But yeah, so I had real rudimentary knowledge of how to do body work, but I had a good group of people that worked the shop that when they had spare time, were willing to show me how to do things. The first shop I worked with, for some reason, instilled in my mind that I had to panel bond everything, that I could never use body filler. And so it's $800 in panel bond all over the car. But I finally get to a point where, circling back around to how me and Brandon became really good friends. We knew of each other a little bit at the time. I was the GM of a nonprofit where we had an indoor skate park, and Brandon would come to our skate park pretty often with some of our mutual friends. So we knew of each other. But I put out a feeler post on Facebook because I am mentally drained. I cannot do this on my own anymore. It's really kicking my ass. I just can't do it. And I'm just like, hey, can anybody come and just help me occasionally, just somebody to talk to the whole time, the middle of the night while I'm working on this, just somebody to come hang out with. You don't even have to work, just come hang out. And Brandon, the last person I expected to even respond to that, said, hey, I would love to come help you. And I thought that was great. Cool, maybe he'll come hang out, once a week, a couple times a week. No, Brandon came out there after he'd worked 10 hours a day, every single day, came out there with me. And as long as I wanted to work. If it was 4 a.m, it was 4 a.m. if we cut it off early. But he was out there working with me on that car every single night. And I could not have built that without him. And he's been like that on all of my other builds and things like that. And so that's a little bit off topic, but that's how we became really good friends, was through that Skyline. So back to this atrocious body kit. I was so angry, I sent a really long, detailed message to the people I bought it from. They were just resellers. They really did not care. But like I said, it was supposed to be a Duraflex material. It was supposed to be from Duraflex. This might have been the very first U.S. body that they ever did. And disclaimer, if you bought this car, if you are the person that ended up with the salvaged car after this is said and done, I'm so sorry that we did such a half-assed job putting it together. Like, we were trying our best with what knowledge we knew at the time. This was years ago. We had no idea what we were doing.
That's all we had.
Yeah, we did our best. I know it did sell because we're getting to it, but the car did get totaled out, and the insurance wasn't, I wasn't about to buy it back for what they wanted it. But so we're slapping this R34 body onto this R32 GTST. And we get the side skirts panel bonded on. We get the rear bumper all bolted on. The driver's side rear fender, we had to cut and move probably like 6 inches and make a new panel there just because the whole thing was skewed. But really the highlight is this front bumper, that's horrible front bumper. Like I said, it was flared out on either side, 6 to 8 inches. So we get the rest of the car done, and we now have our R34 headlights are here. They're beautiful, pristine, and we have this screwed up bumper with no mounting tabs, no clips, nothing at all. And we're trying to figure out how do we even get it to fit, first off. If we can get it to bolt onto the fenders or fit, we can figure out all the geometry of everything else later. I go to a local sign shop and I buy a 6-foot by 10-foot piece of dye bond, and dye bond is an outdoor material that's basically aluminum, or it's plastic that's sandwiched in between 2 pieces of aluminum. I use it for outdoor signs and things like that. It's similar to, I think it's Alumilite. A lot of people are building splitters out of this Alumilite. It's real similar to that. That's what I wanted, but we couldn't find any locally. We get this piece of dye bond, and we slide it underneath the car, and on either side of us, we get this dye bond and this bumper kind of jacked up so it sits about where it needs to be. And we get on either side of the bumper, and we just squeeze the bumper until it's lined up with the fenders that we have mounted and our other mounting points. So we get it squeezed, and the whole thing's getting warped. And then as we're squeezing it, I get a Sharpie, and I put a little mark on the dye bond where that bumper needs to go. So you might see where this is going. After we get our little template made, we take the dye bond panel and the bumper over to one of the big tables, and we start drilling holes into the bumper and into the dye bond panel. And we start bolting on one side, and we work our way around until the dye bond is now this kind of big square piece of aluminum that's holding the bumper squeezed in where it's supposed to go. And it worked really, really well. I think it's the only way I could have ever got this to work without, I guess we could have cut maybe like a whole center out of it, but then the grill would have been a weird shape, and the headlights would have been thrown off a little bit. So
Re-glass it.
yeah, so for somebody that really had basic knowledge of just tooling and very basic mechanic knowledge, it seemed like a really good way to go, and it worked out great. We ended up cutting that down, and it was a really good-looking splitter. We got a little router out, and we routed down the edge so that it followed the front of the bumper, and it held it in place. Now, of course, that warped the center panels a little bit, so we cut a few triangles out and just bodyworked it, smoothed that out. Worked really, really well. But like I said, there's no mounting points, so now we have this whole thing at the right shape, finally, like it should have come out of the box. How are we going to mount this to the car? I'm very, very picky. I wanted no exterior fasteners anywhere on the car, and so that's why we're panel bonding everything together and making it really smooth. In this case, there was no way we're going to be able to avoid it because the fenders, where it mounts to the front bumper, were going to be janky and warped, and so we cut a few pieces of steel and drilled some holes so that the fenders and the front bumper bolted together, and we used some beauty washers. That worked pretty good. However, the headlights. It's time to stick headlights into this empty hole where the bumper is in the hood. There's nowhere to put them. The headlights have a few like built-in mounting points with some threaded holes, but there's nowhere to put any of these on. And while we're building this, we decided that, hey, this is going to be really, really sketchy at speed. So we need to put some braces in. So we went to not Harbor Freight, Tractor Supply, and we started buying steel rods. Oh, is it iron?
Yeah, flat iron.
Iron, steel, whatever.
Flat strap.
The hard metal, that one. And we started building little brackets to hold the bumper together just to make it sturdier, and we kind of did some cool triangulation stuff. I hope I have some photos of it to put up here because it was really cool. Like, it worked really, really well. So a bunch of cool angled like L brackets and stuff that we built, and we used that to hold the headlights. And so where the bumper would belt bolt to the dye bond, we would put a little L bracket that we built, and it would run up, and it would hold one of the headlights. And so we did our very best, and once it was all said and done, the headlights fit sufficiently. It wasn't perfect, but they fit pretty good, especially for what we started with, because it was a huge, huge mess. We eventually got everything onto the car. Now it's time to bodywork it. And we'd never done bodywork before, but like I said, we had a really good group of people. This is a high-end hot rod shop that we're working at. And so we have a good group of people behind us showing us how to bodywork and how to mix our hardener and everything appropriately. We got a little ahead of ourselves. I was very, very anxious. At this point, this like 2 or 3 week project has now turned into months and months, and I've had enough of it. And so now that the car's all together, like it's tunnel vision. Like I can't see anything except the finished car and us driving it, because I only drove the car a single day after I got it. So finally, my paint guy's like, hey dude, you need a body work that's for like a week or two to get it to good shape. I'm like, no, we're not doing that. You're gonna paint this car right now. So I wasn't gonna put cheap paint on it. So we spent like $3,000 on the best paint and clear that we could get. And my painter did a fantastic job. Of course, we had to paint it Bayside blue because, like I said, Fast and Furious fanboy, right? And while it was getting painted, we had ordered intercooler. There's a universal intercooler kit from CX Racing, and I know a lot of people like rag on their stuff, but I've used their radiators and intercoolers on lots of stuff and never had any problems. And so we ordered kind of a universal kit, and we chopped it up and made a really, really nice intercooler kit for it. Slapped it on the car while it was getting primed. What else did we do? We replaced like a few studs that broke on the wheels, and nothing major though. We didn't do any bolt-on parts until after the car was really painted, or any interior work or anything like that. But the car finally gets painted, and I'm super, super stoked about it. Up close, there's lots of waves, especially in the hood. It looked the hood was really messed up. But wow, I've never, even in the Elise, which when that car was only 5 years old, got so much attention. It still does get a stupid amount of attention. Mm-hmm. But the Skyline got more attention than anything I'd ever been in before. I couldn't stop at a gas station or a red light or anything. Somebody wanted to see it. And I didn't realize how much like the R34 meant to everybody, at least everybody around here, every car person. And I felt really bad because Brandon only got to drive it a handful of times, and he worked so hard on it. Man, we did tons of photos with it. Everybody was stopping me at stoplights and red lights, and they wanted to see it. They wanted to take pictures of it. It just got so much attention, and it was a lot of fun to take to shows. And like one of the Fast and the Furious movies is probably like 6 or 7. The opening night, a bunch of us import guys took our cars up there, and they had it all roped off, and it was just cool having like a hero car there that nobody had ever really seen in person before, since that car is not legal. So it was a great ownership experience. The car itself, it was fun to drive because of what it was. As far as it was miserable as far as performance. It was a boat. It sounded great. It sounded really, really awesome. But it wasn't particularly fast. But of course, we did HKS blow-off valve. We did what exhaust did we do on that? We picked up some random exhaust from a man. It sounded good though. I drove like 4 or 5 hours away to go pick it up too. There's some random muffler that I wanted to put on it. Some JDM muffler, but gosh, it sounded great. I think my buddy Clayton shot some videos. If you're into scooters, you definitely know Clayton is one of my good friends. He's from this area, so every time he comes to town, we'll try to get together, and we had to take the Skyline out and drive it around a little bit. So fast forward, I don't know, maybe 6 months, I'm sitting at my buddy Yoshi's house, and Yoshi is actually one of my editors and one of my best friends, and so he's probably editing this video right now. So we're sitting at my buddy Yoshi's house. We're probably playing Smash Bros. I think we were streaming, actually, at the time. And we hear this loud, thunderous clap. Like it's not supposed to be raining. His stepfather barges in through the door. No small amount of inebriation along with it. He was very intoxicated. He bursts in through the door and said, "Y'all gotta get outside!" But like, in Spanish, he yelled it at Yoshi. And I'm like, oh crap, what's going on? So we go outside, and the Skyline has been moved like 8 or 10 feet from where it was. And there was a Jeep, not a Wrangler, an older Jeep Cherokee. This kid had turned the corner. It was dark outside. He had turned the corner and just wasn't paying attention, and hit the back of it and scraped down the side. Hit it so hard that it bent the rear subframe. It broke one of the wheels. There were stress cracks in the bodywork around the entire car. It beat it up really, really bad. At the time, I was honestly pretty ready to get rid of it anyway. I just wanted to build it and then sell it and move on to something else. And so the insurance claim actually went significantly better than I thought it would. I expected them to, even though it was a legal car and even though it was imported through the appropriate means and they were insuring it, since somebody else hit it, I expected them to have some issues because, you know, the JDM VIN is shorter than a USDM VIN. But it actually went really easy. We argued about a few tiny things, as you always do with insurance claims. But they ended up giving me, almost to the dollar, exactly what I spent on the car, plus tax, plus all of the materials to went into the car. So aside from our time, we totally broke even on that car. It was really sad because we spent so much time on it, but at the end of the day, it let us get into something else. And, you know, it was a lot of fun building. So as much as I love that car, I don't think I'll buy another Skyline. The R34 will be legal here in just a couple years. And as beautiful as a car that is, when the R34 is legal, the Subaru Impreza version 6 STI, the two-door GC8 body, that will also be legal. It's the one that Takami's dad has in Initial D. I had a hacked together right-hand drive swapped one, and that was the funnest car that I've ever had. Funnest JDM car that I've ever had. So I think if I get another import anytime in the future, it would be that, as much as I like the Skyline. It was just really heavy, and it was quick, but it wasn't fast. And even the GTRs, even the R32 GTRs I've been in, are fast, but it doesn't have the... You're just not there.
It's lacking.
Yeah, it's just too large, I feel like. At the same time, the Lotus has ruined everything that I've ever been in for me. But I really did like the Impreza a lot. That's the best looking car Subaru has ever made, is that version 6 STI. It's beautiful. It's what the 22B was based off of it. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, you probably know what a 22B is. Mine had the 22B bumper and spoiler on it, which the STI is almost exactly the same. That's probably what I would end up buying. Anyway, I guess we're gonna wrap this up. I hope you enjoyed the video. Oh, is my audio dead? Did it die? Oh, it died! Perfect timing. Anyway, that's the story of the R32 Skyline that we converted to an R34. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please drop us a like and subscribe if you're interested in more content like this. As soon as we're not quarantined anymore, maybe we will film not by a green screen.
It was a Kakimoto muffler. That's what it was.
Kakimoto. That's what it was. Very good. I can always trust Brandon to interject at the appropriate times. Thank you for that. Anyway, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.